afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being present here today. It's a great privilege to be on this stage and to present to so many HR professionals. And I'd also like to give special thanks to Sampath for introducing me here and for the CHE team for organising this summit. Today I'm going to be talking about people analytics and the advantages they provide when you integrate them within your human resources processes. But before I get into that, I'll give you a quick overview of PeopleLogica as a company, and I'll also explain to you what people analytics actually are. So PeopleLogica are a leading people analytics provider to both Australian and international markets. We provide leading people analytics to HR departments in order to enable better HR outcomes at each stage of the employee lifecycle. People analytics represent the next evolution of human resources processes. They include skills assessments, psychometrics, and feedback platforms. What they essentially do is they can collect accurate employee data that you can then use to inform your decisions, free of bias, supported by scientific research, and supported by rigorous statistical analyses to ensure you make the best decisions in your human resources department. So when people ask me why they should use people analytics, I like to show them the following graph I'm about to display. The statistics I will show you represent the success rate of each selection method in predicting the highest performing candidate during the recruitment process. Now, currently, a lot of companies still rely on the old method of just using interviews and reference checks in order to select the highest performing candidate. However, this is outdated. From what research tells us, you're better off essentially flipping a coin, because using these two methods together only gives you a 26% chance of selecting the highest performing candidate for the position. This is not really good enough, and with people analytics, there is a better way. By employing people analytics, we can boost the success rate of selecting a high performer by 50%, giving you a 75% total chance of selecting the highest performing candidate for the position. This is because it gives you more in-depth insight into their personality, their behaviour, their interests, and also their job matching. So with this in mind, I'd like to take you through each stage of the employee life cycle and provide a demonstration of how these people analytics can benefit at each stage. So at the first stage, you have the screening process. This is typically at the beginning when you have all the applicants who have applied for the role. You essentially want to find the candidates that have the correct skills and knowledge to perform the basic tasks required of the role. However, this is not always an easy process, and it's often quite time-consuming, particularly in today's modern society where you have hundreds of applicants applying for a single job position. This can take up valuable time and is often very expensive. With people analytics, however, there is a better way. You can utilise cloud-based platforms in order to provide more efficient, cost-effective mass screening at under $1 per candidate per scale. What's more, you have customisable job and subject tests which are based on thorough job analyses, so you can be sure that you are assessing these candidates on the right skills and knowledge required for the position. And you can achieve this by a variety of means. You can employ simulation testing, you can employ software testing, you can employ video questions, long answers, as well as your standard multiple choice and forced answer formats. By doing this, you have a more efficient screening process which greatly saves you time and money. So now you've screened out the candidates who don't have the basic skills and knowledge required. You have a much smaller candidate pool. Your focus now is to select from this pool the highest performing candidates for the position, so you select the right person. Now, with the aforementioned method of using interviews and reference checks, this is fraught with challenges. Oftentimes, you'll have an unstructured, unreliable interview process, and you'll have biases. Commonly, with interviews, a lot of people will select candidates who are the best actors, rather than the best performers for the role. It's hard to accurately gain insight into what a candidate's like based on a 1-hour interview, despite how good quality your questions are. Now, I'd like to ask a quick question. Who here can put their hand up and say they have hired a bad employee on purpose? I didn't expect to see anyone, but unfortunately, this is essentially what you're doing if you do not change to more advanced selection techniques. By using high-performance benchmarks, you can overcome the limitations present with interviews and reference checks. You can create high-performance benchmarks where you can assess high performers in the role and critically extract the success attributes they need to succeed. Based on these high performance benchmarks, you can measure candidates accurately and reliably on their cognitive thinking styles, their behavioural traits, and their interests. You can then base their results on these high performance benchmarks to assess how well they fit the position and look through the candidates to compare which one best fits. From this also, you can generate interview and selection reports. With the interview reports, you can assess areas of potential concern and investigate further to assess whether they would be still a potential candidate for the position. With the selection report, you can gain talent insights, so you can identify potential problems with them before they actually start the position, and what's more, gain a preview of how they are likely to behave in the job. And finally, you can base your decisions on reliable, valid results based on over 40 years of scientific research and best practice. So by this point, you've picked the highest performing candidate for the position. A lot of people would just relax here and say, well, my job's done, but this is incorrect. As you all know, developing your employees is highly important if you want to get the best out of them. As before, however, this is not always an easy process. It can be quite difficult to reliably assess developing areas in employees, particularly given most managers will not be with their employees throughout their entire workday. You have issues such as personal biases, preventing accurate identification of these strengths and developing areas. And a lot of the time, organisations will implement a training package which is not flexible enough to cater to the individual needs of each employee. People analytics provides a better way to develop your employees. You can receive more targeted development suggestions which best fits their needs. You can identify skill gaps and competency gaps and receive targeted recommendations in order to best develop them into the highest performing candidates they can possibly be. You can integrate these recommendations into your training and development processes, look at coaching them, and then assess the effectiveness once it's finished. Furthermore, you can identify succession pathways, where you can see where they can progress in the organisation, what senior roles they'll be best suited to, and you can then develop them accordingly to ensure they meet their career goals. And finally, you can gain more insights into how to develop and train a high-performing team by looking at each individual's strengths and weaknesses and by identifying areas the leader must focus on in order to be a more effective leader. And finally, we come to the feedback stage, which should be persistent throughout an organisation. It's difficult to improve if you're not getting the right amount of feedback. However, certainly in my case as well, this is often a time-consuming process. A lot of the time you have to, for example, if you're doing a 360-degree leadership assessment, you'll need to develop the survey items, you'll then need to send the survey out, you'll need to chase people up who haven't completed it on time, and following that, you'll need to extract the results, perform analyses on them, generate recommendations, and finally present those to management for implementation. By the time you've completed this process, the feedback is often outdated, and most employees don't really care so much about these issues anymore. Is it any wonder that you often hear comments from employees complaining about doing yet another employee engagement survey? People analytics provides a far more streamlined, effective way of doing this. It provides pre-made templates which you can then customise to the needs of the role, and it allows for automatic reporting, so you no longer have to spend valuable time on doing the analyses required and generating recommendations. It also broadens your options in terms of what feedback you would like. You can conduct MPS surveys, 360-degree leadership evaluation surveys, 180-degree employee development surveys, and pulse surveys, ensuring that you get several raters to rate each individual on their performance. And finally, they are completely confidential and they are cost effective, costing less than $1 a day to implement. So I'll leave you with this one thought. Technology has improved our lives in so many ways. So why in HR departments are we not adopting the latest technology to improve our processes? If you have any questions regarding any of this, please feel free to approach me after the session is finished. And if you're interested in implementing people analytics in your organisation, please contact Sampath or approach him after the conference, as he is our official partner in this region. Thank you.